You still don't care about the football, Catherine?
Oh, no, I don't. I care.
Hello,
don't.
Welcome. We're live.
Hello.
That was an odd non-sequitur to jump in. You still don't care about the football, Catherine.
I don't.
Welcome to this history programme where we will not be talking about the football.
Nobody's
history.
Football did not come home.
It didn't.
It would just, maybe next time the men will do as well as the Lionesses. The Lionesses men's team just didn't cover themselves in history. But fortunately, the women never trust a man to do a woman's job.
Controversy.
The ladies are bringing. Don't you worry.
No, that was bullshit though. People going, it has come home. The Lionesses brought it home. Nobody fucking knew that because nobody watched it. Okay,
well, yeah.
It's a different game. That's
Hang
why
on.
no one cares.
Well,
I knew said something that might maybe look really awful. So
they would have cared about the Lionesses if after World War II the FA hadn't banned women from playing because the women's game got so popular.
Can I just check something that made me look even worse than it normally does? Were the Lionesses playing as well at the same time?
No, this was a couple of years ago.
I thought, Jesus Christ. I mean, I missed most of this stuff, but even it would have been spectacular if I'd missed that, wouldn't it?
No, they weren't.
Yeah, I went to the cinema while it was on.
It used to happen at the same time, didn't it? But then did the pandemic swatch it up?
Oh, I don't know.
The pandemic cock everything up? Surely not.
The pandemic moved the actual last Euros a year. So the Euros 2020 were played in 21. I think that's right. Just odd.
Weird.
Yeah.
Anywho's, shall I do the
thing?
Do the thing. Hello, friends. Welcome to Wednesday. 8:15. This is History After Dark. We called it that because this is the place where you, as you may be aware, the three of us on our other platforms
got straight in actually today.
Veritable paragons of innocence and grace. Here is the place where we let our freak flags fly. Here is the location where we indulge in four-letter expletives, smut, innuendo. So if you are in an open plan office with a judgmental boss, put a headphone in. If you are in a car, a kitchen, a shed with a small child, we call this child Timmy. I haven't got the mic. Get your merch out, babe. Timmy is a problem. Check out our merch store. We also have Catherine's Rough Beaver up for grabs and various other History Dark proffer that you may wish to look at. Timmy is the sort of child that hears one depraved thing one time, locks it away in his mind palace, takes it into school with him on his little tiddly-toddly way, and repeats it in front of his teacher, who in my head is Miss Honey from Matilda. She, of course, is not somebody who watches History After Dark because she is pure as the driven, and thus she breaks the first rule of History After Dark, which is ding-a-ling-a-ling. If you don't know what it means, don't Google it. It's not for you. So she Googles it, and now she is in a position in the corner, and she's now non-verbal. You get called at school, you've got to explain why Timmy knows his unspeakable thing, and also they are going to take a check for Miss Honey's therapy because they do need her to be able to speak in order to teach the children. It's awkward all around. Put a headphone in. Alternatively, you can always watch them the playback on the YouTubes. It is watching us live because on one occasion we did something that was so unspeakably borderline illegally depraved that we did have to yeet that footage directly into the sun. It's not happened for a while, which means one of things: either we have got better, unlikely, two, we're due another snafu, more likely, and the third, which I think is possibly the most likely, the three of us, this coven of witches, weird sisters, if you will, have now spent so much time together. We are so in tune with each other's depravity that the bar of decency is in hell. It's very clear what this show is going to be. I don't think I have minced my words. If at any point we should see somebody either in the comments here or in the comments on our own media telling us anything along the lines of, I really enjoy the history of History After Dark, but do you have to swear so much? It's very unladylike. We know what you're doing. We know that what you want us to do is you want to put in that comment so that everybody can come from the comment and they can shame you because you want to be humiliated. And you know, if that is your kink, that's fine. I won't kink shame you. The other two might. I don't speak for them.
We will.
I definitely kink shame you. But if you want to have your bollock stepped on by a busty Amazonian princess in a basement in Brighton. Her name is Tequila Farila. If that's what you want to do, first of all, you pays your money and you take a choice. That's good for you. I know some absolutely wonderful doms. They will call you every name under the sun. They'll make you feel so degraded that you will have an exciting time in your knickers. That's cool. But without consent is not okay. Kink without consent is not a place for here. We also hope that you are all adults. Lucas, go to bed. So we aren't going to tell you not to. But to be clear, this will never be an authorised drinking game on our behalf. This will never be legal advice either. Don't sue. And I think that's about it. It's time now to talk about a very religious situation. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about Roman Catholics.
We are the right people for that job.
I've got a feeling this one might be the one that I've already started. So before the disclaimer, I think it might.
Let's talk about some Roman Catholics.
Worst one to choose.
So today, if you may from the title, we are talking about a man called Nicholas Owen. He is a priesthide builder. I enjoy calling them priest holes.
Yeah,
because then you say, "Have you seen my priest hole?"
Have you been in my priest?
Have you been in my priest hole?
Pushed me in a priest hole.
How big is that priest hole? Is there room for a little one in the priest hole? I enjoy that. So I'm probably going to call them priest holes for this. But priesthide is arguably the less vulgar version. So my job is I'm going to be starting us off, and I am going to be talking about a little bit of background. So essentially, why are we in a position where priestholes are being built, and what is going on? So I think to get there, we sort of have to start with the road of religion, the road of faith, as we go through the Tudors. So first and foremost, we have got Henry VIII. He breaks from Rome. I'm not going to teach my grandma to suck eggs here. I'm going to go relatively quickly. Henry VIII, contrary to some people's opinion, is never a Protestant. That also is probably not a word that anybody in his country would have used to refer to themselves, because Protestants are a very small subsect of people at that time in a very small part of Europe. There are times where Henry is arguably leaning towards the path of reform, but to be very clear, in my mind, and I think in many minds, he is born a Roman Catholic and he dies an English Catholic. When he is having his tomb built, the tomb that never gets built, lol, he requests that this tomb is going to have a space for people to say masses for his soul. The reason you do that is because you believe there's a chance you're going to end up in purgatory. Protestants don't believe in purgatory. What Henry also does in making himself the supreme head of the Church of England, and in making denying his supremacy treason, but also going too far in the road of faith heresy, is he creates a very, very narrow path upon which people of faith can walk. And in that narrow path, the word of the king, the supreme head of the church, is what differentiates between life and death. It sets up a scene whereby then when his son takes the throne, Edward is or his government, whoever you want to see as being responsible for it, they are devout reforming Protestants. This creates some chaos and confusion. It leads to Jane Grey being placed on the throne for not very long. And then we get the rise of Mary. With Mary, there is a kind of celebration, a festival of forgiveness between England and Rome. We are Roman Catholic once again. All well and good, unless you are a Protestant, in which case you are a kebab. Then, last but by no means least, we end up with Elizabeth. And Elizabeth is a Protestant. In matters of faith, though, she's kind of a middle way Protestant. The phrase, which she may or may not have said, it's certainly reported that she says it anyway. Sir Francis Walsingham, when he's writing to the Secretary of France, he says that Her Majesty, meaning Elizabeth, not liking to make windows into men's hearts and secret thoughts, except the abundance of them did overflow into overt and express acts, or etc., etc. What this is, this kind of not seeking to make windows into men's hearts, what seems to be being said is that Elizabeth doesn't care what you privately believe. She potentially doesn't even care what you privately practice. Outward conforming to the faith, attendance at church is necessary. There are fines for people who habitually refuse to attend the Church of England during Elizabeth's reign. But at the start, those fines are fairly minimal. Put it this way, if you are wealthy, you can certainly... Is my audio breaking up? I'm going to pull it towards me.
Yeah, a little bit.
Is that better?
Yeah, it's good when it's in. It's just cutting out a little bit.
It's good when it's in.
Go in and see if maybe it's just not picking you up. Try again.
With this, she is essentially, with these fines, if a person has money particularly, they can effectively practice their faith as they see fit. They can also theoretically pay for priests to come and say masses for them. However, things do change. And certainly by the late 1570s, 1580s and 1590s, this not seeking to make windows into men's hearts is not the situation anymore. At this point, Elizabeth and her government are very keen to make windows into men's hearts and also potentially torture information out of them. The issue that is going on, so first of all, in 1569, we have got the rebellion of the Northern Earls. They are looking to push the Reformed faith out. They want to go back to the Roman Catholic faith. The Pope, I think, seeing an opportunity in this, in the following year, 1570, decides to publish the Regnans in Excelsis. This is the document that excommunicates Elizabeth. Why does this matter? Because from that moment, theoretically, anybody who is a practicing or believing Roman Catholic is being told by the Pope, who they believe is the true head of their church, that Elizabeth is no queen. That any duties, bonds, or acts of fealty they feel they owe her are now officially broken by him. What that means is the duty they owe her as their queen to be loyal to her, to defend her throne, is swept away. In essence, their faith is telling them the best thing they can do is depose Elizabeth in favour of a Roman Catholic. There's certainly going to be a question as to whether it's possible for people to be both a loyal Roman Catholic and loyal Elizabethan. Certainly, Elizabeth and her government are going to have questions about this. As a sign of how clear things change, after Elizabeth's first act of uniformity, so back in 1559, each time you failed to attend church, you're fined a shilling. That's 12 pence in old money. So that's approximately a day's wages for a skilled tradesman. However, after 1581, where there is this act called the Act to Retain the Queen's Majesty's Subjects in their due obedience, this is basically, if you don't turn up to church, we're going to fine you. Now, each month of absence from a person's parish church gets you a fine of £20. That is equivalent to approximately 400 days of wages for a skilled tradesman. So between the late 1550s and the early 1580s, there has been an explosion, an inflation in this fine. And one of the clear things that's happened in 1570 is, of course, the excommunication. What then also becomes problematic, and really it's the reason why these priesthides or priest holes are built, is then you get the arrival of the Society of Jesus or the Jesuits into England. And what the Jesuits would have said they're doing is that they are risking life and limb, they are risking imprisonment, torture and execution to come into England, having been trained on the continent to preach to the faithful and maintain the Catholic faith secretly and privately. Elizabeth and her government, however, present how much they believe this, how true it is up for question, I think. But they view the Jesuits as effectively a foreign-trained, foreign radicalized religious group of extremists. They see them effectively as a budding terror network that is coming into England seeking to radicalize the population through faith, potentially convert the population, radicalize them into doing acts of terror. Potentially those acts of terror up to and including a regicide, the murder of the Queen. Thus, it becomes necessary to start, or it's perceived as being necessary to start hunting the priests. And therefore, we get into this cat and mouse thing where you have people rigging up their houses to try and hide these priests, and you have a team of government agents trying to obtain information through spy networks, through informants, through capturing and torturing them. And also they start going house to house thinking, well, we've been told there's a priest here, they're hiding somewhere, and they will spend days there pulling these places apart. So as it is with kind of weapons and armor, the weapons manufacturer rises to the challenge of the armor that's being made, so become more deadly, more aggressive, and the armor therefore becomes stronger. And equally, as the armor becomes stronger, the weapons become stronger, and vice versa. A very similar symbiosis happening between the searchers and the Jesuits and the people on their side. So that, I think, is hopefully some helpful background as to what's going on and as to, I suppose, the stage onto which Nicholas Owen and his fellows step.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yes.
Oh, it was quite the time. It
was a whistle-stop tour. I hope it was helpful.
This idea of the toleration, and then it just becomes less and less tolerant.
Yeah,
and
I think
creates...
there's a bunch of stuff happening. You know, you've got this rebellion of the Northern Earls, then you've got the excommunication, then you've got Mary Queen of Scots arriving over Elizabeth's northern border. 1571, you've got the Rodolphi plot. There are, and let's not also forget, I think we probably should, one thing to add in as well, I wonder as much how much the events of St. Bartholomew's Day 1572 in Paris, that's not England. I do wonder how much that really ramps up a fear of Jesuits, Roman Catholics. I'm fairly sure that we are aware of what happens, but just quickly, the St. Bartholomew's Day massacre. There's a wedding. For those of you who've seen Game of Thrones, the St. Bartholomew's Day massacre makes the Red Wedding look like a tea party. Some say it's orchestrated. This massacre is orchestrated on the orders of Catherine de Medici. But in the middle of the night, between the 23rd to the 24th of August 1572, which is the eve of the feast of St. Bartholomew's Day, massacre starts. Paris, people working in Paris are on the hunt for French Protestant Huguenots. They are defenestrated. They are slaughtered in the streets. The Seine runs with blood. This slaughter on this day and in the weeks that follow means that the violence spreads out from Paris and begins to engulf the country. I think it's also very important for what happens, and particularly for the role of informants, spying and torture, that one of the people who is in Paris at this time is the man who later becomes Elizabeth's spy master, Francis Walsingham. He's on an embassy to France at this point. He is in Paris on St. Bartholomew's Day. His home becomes a refuge for people fleeing the violence, and he is not in Paris by himself. He is there with his wife, who is pregnant, and also with his little daughter. So all of this is happening. Walsingham is watching, and he has to think about his pregnant wife and very, very young daughter. There are no surviving records of Walsingham's experience at this time of what he feels, but does this perhaps go some way to explain the rigours with which he will go to see off those who he believes to be a Roman Catholic threat to his queen and to his England? I wonder.
I'd be surprised if not to. We did actually do a had on the St. Bartholomew's Day massacre. I know I remember this because I was searching through some stuff. So it was only on Instagram. So that's how long ago it was. And it was just me and Kat. So if you're not following us on Instagram, it's history.after.dark. There's a blast from the past. And it's probably about 2 years ago now. Because I think we did it on the anniversary roughly of it happening, which is of course coming up. So yeah. If you want to go back and check that out, then you should. If I've still got it, I'll see if I can. I don't know if I've still got it, but if I have, maybe we can put it up. You don't know.
Fab.
Yes, probably can.
On that happy note, let's have a little musical interlude, because it's Catherine's word of the week. Word of the week. Bum bum bum. Word of the week. Word of the week. Bum bum bum.
Okay, so this week. It's going to be pretty simple, because normally, one of us will throw something out and the rest of us have got to work out what it means. Maybe we'll talk about the etymology of it. This one, I think, is pretty self-explanatory, but I heard it and I just entirely loved it, and have in fact used it myself. However, we're going to use them and we don't, but you can probably work it out. So this is something that you all will have experienced. If you have to do something many times, you often find yourself in the same place, or you are surrounded by the same insufferable bellends, which I think we can all equate with. And the word is déjà vu.
Same shit, different day. Same shit, different day.
Yeah. So just a really quick word of the week this week. But I just thought that you would enjoy that one, because at the moment, there seems to be a huge amount of insufferability about. So déjà vu, the unfortunate place that we find ourselves when just experiencing the same shit over and over and over. Normally out of the same people's house, when they're arsehole.
Amanda says, is this an arsehole? Also, I think along the same lines, I enjoy an 11 because if you've been to Tenerife, they've been to 11.
Oh yeah.
Always one better. Yeah. Okay.
11. Yeah. Wherever you've done, they've been to 11.
Love it.
Twats. But before we slide into a rant, let's save that for our next interlude.
Oh, my veil's all the way over there.
I know, I've left mine in the wrong place as well.
It all have to
Not me.
As I lean over, Cat likes that. No rough beavers today, though. Don't get both at the same time. Okay.
You've got your hand t-shirt on.
I do have my hand t-shirt on. The old school one. Old school t-shirt. Right. Okay. I'd actually started this. How Owen learned his trade and the locations of his holes, brackets, unfortunate. I would like to say someone pointed out earlier that in terms of equality, the holes are not gender specific. I can't remember who wrote that further up in the comments. But the holes are not gender specific. Okay, so Nicholas Owen. So it's kind of a bit of a starty bits and then that. So you've had a bit of background and then. So he was born in Oxford, Nicholas Owen. The exact year is unknown, but there's a couple of dates given around 1555 up to, unless he started his apprenticeship quite late, 1562. So there's those 2 dates. Could be somewhere in between, but probably looking at one of those 2. His father was Walter Brown. He was a carpenter. And there aren't many records, but it seems we can account for, he had 4 brothers, John born in 1561, Nicholas Walter in 1568, and Henry around 1571. And there's also a note of a younger daughter called Elizabeth. So Oxford was a much more Catholic friendly city than a lot of places, going right back to the time when Henry was going through his great matter and he was seeking support from the major universities, amongst other people, in support for this. And Cambridge had stood for Henry and Oxford University had said no. So they were not giving in to Henry in his great matter. So Oxford remained very much more a Catholic friendly, safe place city. And the Owens had survived and thrived there all that time. They had a good support network and they were obviously quite wealthy as well, because Kat mentioned briefly the fines you can get for not attending church. And so they could afford to pay those fines. And the ones set by the Queen. So in 1566, the family moved to number 3 Castle Street, which Walter had leased from Magdalen College in Oxford. And so the ground floor would have contained his workshop, because he was a carpenter, and the bedrooms would have been upstairs. Now, it seems likely, so we don't know, so we're kind of extrapolating a little bit, but it seems likely that Nicholas would have helped his father and he would have learned some of his trade at least. And in the process of that, he would have visited other building sites, other places having work done. So he'd have seen and learned quite a lot there. So we don't absolutely know this for sure. It's not specifically documented, but it's very likely, and you see what he ends up doing, that was the case. But so the thing is it was expected, especially with the sort of Catholic thing going on within the family, that him and his brothers were expected to enter the church, and that's obviously not what happened. So Kat mentioned the bull in 1570 that the Pope Pius V put forward, saying obviously open warfare on the Queen might be too strong, but maybe also not. But obviously at that point people started to realise that being a Catholic was sort of becoming more and more dangerous, really. And this was when people, I think, really started to realise how serious the situation could become if they wanted to continue to practice Catholicism, because we see a lot of laws changing around this time, and I'll come back to that in a second. So just a little bit more about Nicholas Owen. So he was very short. He had a couple of nicknames. The main one was Little John, but also Little Michael for some reason. But he was clearly very capable of heavy masonry work. Well, it's his height that was what prevented him from entering the priesthood, like 2 of his brothers did eventually. So as if it hadn't already caused enough problems, cue Leviticus. No man who has any defect may come near. No man who is blind or lame, disfigured or deformed. No man with a crippled foot or hand who is hunchbacked or dwarfed. So there's the old inclusivity of the church right there.
That is the ableism that we know and love. Delightful work.
Yeah, the inclusivity is top notch there. So he didn't enter the church anyway, is the long and short of it, and it served them right. So he needed a trade. He wasn't going to get it, so he needed a trade. Now, if you were going to do a trade, you required an apprenticeship, and according to the state of artificers at the time, your apprenticeship had to be a minimum of 7 years. So this is kind of where we can work out the later age range thing, depending on where he might have started his apprenticeship. So yeah, his father was a carpenter, but he became a joiner, and I'm like, people doing stuff with wood, but it's a bit more complicated than that apparently. So it's not my area. It's not my area. So a carpenter would have been associated with house building and maybe making sort of more lower quality or more roughly strewn furniture and things like that. Whereas a joiner, which is what Nicholas Owen turned out to be, he would work very much more with fine finishes on furniture and things like things being much more precise. So it was this necessity to have things with that perfect finish, things that lock in very well, that set with glue and work together and slide very carefully. These were the things, obviously, the skills that he learned that helped him become so successful in building, or one of the things that made him become so successful in building the hinds. He really specifically had the talent to make these things quite perfect. So, and also as well, these things wanted to be absolutely beautiful, and they highlighted the owner's wealth. So you can see all the people in these the houses where the hinds were being built were extremely wealthy families. So he enrolled as an apprentice to a guy, an Oxford joiner called William Conway, on the 2nd of February, 1577. That's David's birthday. Not the year, obviously. 2nd of February.
He's a vampire.
Anyway, so vampire. So lots of stuff happened between 1580 and 1585. So there's a lot. So I haven't put it in here, but it is safe to Google. But there was a lot of religious tensions. They were really, really ramping up and up and up. There was an increase in legislation against Catholics. So we talked about the papal bull earlier, amongst other things. And the fines that Kat mentioned just became extortionate. So one example being, if you were found going to mass, you received a fine of 100 marks, which is £66 in today's money. So back then, obviously, and a year in prison. Church prison. Anyway, in 1585, Parliament passed an act against Jesuits, seminary priests, and other such disobedient persons. So it was now high treason to be a seminary priest in England and also to shelter them. And under this law, priests were to die. So now, of course, we need a place to hide these people. All right. So, but hides were not a thing before 1586 as purpose-built spaces, because they didn't need to be. At that point, you didn't need to be concealing people to an extent with such urgency because of the sort of the literal torture and death that would come at the end of this. So, and in that year, there was a meeting there were 3 Jesuit priests. They had a meeting with all the leading Catholics. So it's still very risky. And they were looking for ways to smuggle people back into England. And that included the discussion on how and where they were going to hide these people. So it's extremely dangerous. So after his apprenticeship ended, Nicholas Owen stayed in Oxford for about 3 years, working as a joiner. But then around that time, he went to visit one of his brothers. His brother's John. So one of his brothers didn't enter the priesthood, but he went and visited his brother John, who was in the Clink prison in London, which we talked about when we did those wankers, the
Bishops of Winchester.
The Bishops of Winchester. We talked about the Clink prison then. And that's where he probably met a guy called Father Henry Garnet, who will get talked about as well, I think, a little bit more. But he entered Henry Garnet's service. They worked together for nearly 20 years. So he was to protect, basically, the priests and people of the Catholic faith. And Owen was a Jesuit lay brother to Garnet's position as a Jesuit superior. Now, there are many, many stories that you can look into of raids on wealthy Catholic houses where the priest hunters came calling to search for the priests because people were continuing to worship in secrets. The big houses, lots of people within these very rural areas would still come. They would have chapels in the houses and things like that. And these places would often have priests in the household, so they would have altars and places in the house where people would come and they could hear mass being said. And they were harbouring these priests, obviously. So the raids were conducted by pursuivants, priest hunters, basically. And they were often led by the local justice of the peace, because if they were involved, they were able to have a signed warrant to search and enter a property. So it was all legal. But here's a little fact for you. So between 1581 and 1590, so a period of 9 years, 100 Catholic priests were executed. But between 1590 and 1603, so a longer period, 13 years, only 25 were executed. So this suggests that the hiding of priests had perhaps become more sophisticated. So is that because we had better priest hides? So this is like, can't actually guarantee this, but this is sort of what it lends itself to, that the hides were becoming more sophisticated, and people were able to sort of get away a little bit more. So here's a few facts, a few hidey facts for you. So actually, the ones that were stored people in, I'm going to store my priests in here.
Put them away, messy buggers.
Just on ice.
We're called
tidy them away.
Packs of ice.
Can you imagine if you could put your kids just in a cupboard? That would be bad, wouldn't it? No. Tidy them away.
Quietly out loud for the first.
Or genius. It could be a warm cupboard.
Definitely.
It could be a comfy cupboard with food. It could be a soundproof cupboard. It could be a soundproof cupboard. That'd be nice.
I would like to go in a soundproof cupboard, so I couldn't hear anyone else, so I could actually have a good night's sleep. That would be fabulous.
Yeah.
Everyone now is going, yes.
Yeah.
We can't see them. They're going, yes.
Sleep cupboard.
Yes. Sleep cupboard.
Cupboard love,
There
Marianne.
you go. Sleep cupboard. That sounds like a great idea.
Anyway,
yes.
Oh, that reminds me of something. They did used to have sleep wardrobes. That's a thing, by the way.
Oh.
If you go to Dover Castle, they've got a reproduction of a couple. So a place essentially they have these beautiful, what looks like wardrobes, but there's two sets of doors, top and bottom. And when you open them up, it's bunk beds for servants. And they have that in the medieval period. So they have actually got bed cupboards. Those are things that exist.
Yes. Yeah.
Sorry, carrying on.
I want one. That's it. You've thrown me now. You've distracted me with a shiny.
I'm sorry. I've magpied you, haven't I?
The squirrels in my brain are having a meltdown.
I'm sorry. I ADHD'd you. Oh, shiny.
Yeah. Okay. So we now call them hides or holes, mostly holes because it's funnier. But they were actually at the time often called conveyances. Conveyances where you transport one thing to another thing. So they were often called conveyances. There were two types of hides. So the hides or holes, which you used to mend, so the conveyances, and also massing hides. So massing hides or vestment hides, are where you put the things that you were obviously attached to Catholicism. You put those in these much smaller spaces. So the massing hides, and they're also called secret corners because they were in the corners of the room. So Owen didn't really do the corners very much. Lots of places say they have his hides apparently, but they don't, and we'll touch a bit more on that in just a second. But apparently, and I tried to get some pictures up of this, and they all wanted, you have to quote this and you have to give me, and I just decided it probably wasn't worth the risk of just throwing it out. But there's one place called Coton Court. I've never been to Coton Court, but apparently they swear down that their hide is an Owen one, and it isn't.
Have a picture of that one. It's above a bread oven, isn't it?
I don't know. Apparently there's turrets at the front as you go in, and on one of them there's no windows.
Yes.
So it's just like, I wonder why there's no windows there, everyone. So it's like the shittest priest hide ever. But apparently that's why people don't believe it's a Nicholas Owen one, because
he was way more clever than
he
that.
Wouldn't have made that error of judgment.
I have a picture. I don't know if you're going to be able to see it. Is that the one you mean, or is it the back? But you can see that one turret doesn't have a window.
Yeah, you see that kind of ones, but like, didn't think that out very well, did you? No. Brownie points for trying, but not really, because someone's probably dead because of you.
Nicholas Owen was way more clever than that. Oh no, sorry. Exactly. This is it. So this is the other side of that tower. This is what you're looking for. So
yes,
you
there you
go.
Windows.
Yeah. So that's the other side of that gatehouse. So the inner court of the house.
Epic fail.
Yeah.
Epic.
Yeah.
Fail. Yeah. Basically. So of all the priesthides, there is only one we know for absolute definite sure. For definite sure.
Definite
For
sure.
definite, we can be sure, is one of his, and this is at a place called Broadoaks or Braddocks, which is in Essex, and it's the home of a recusant named William Wiseman. He was wise because he had the bestest priesthides. So there was a raid on it. This is quite an interesting story, actually, if you want to read the whole thing. But there was a raid on it in 1592, and an elderly Marian priest was found hiding in a false wall and didn't meet the best of ends, obviously. And so it was arranged, because a lot of meetings and things were held here. So it was arranged for Owens to build 2 hides here, one of which is lost. And so the chapel was right at the top of the house. So basically, and this makes more sense than the Coton Court one, is that the chapel is at the furthest point to the main entrance to the house. So obviously, if someone's coming in the right way, you've got more time to hide. And it contained a fireplace. So what he did was he excavated a hole below the grate, removed a lot of the brickwork, and made a space about 2 meters long, 0.6 meters wide and 1.9 meters high. These were small spaces for the best part, very claustrophobic. So it extended down behind the wall of the room below, which was the main reception room. And if you ever go in that, it's got a very, very high ceiling. So you wouldn't necessarily realise that a bit of the space wasn't there, if that makes sense. It was such a high ceiling. And again, Philip's going to be talking about Father John Gerard, but he hid in there over a split stay, 2 days and 2 days, so 4 days. Now, Baddesley Clinton, which is another one that you might have heard of, apparently we don't know that it was him, but people are 99.9% sure it is recurring, because they couldn't, because of the secrecy of the situation, obviously, they couldn't write down where it was, but all the descriptions of the location fit it exactly. And it was like 99 miles from London, and Baddesley Clinton is 100 miles from London. It was owned, or it was, they mentioned the Vaux family, and the time the place was being leased by the Vaux sisters, and talked about when you're in the hide being stood in water, because it was actually in the sewers. So Father Garnet described it as a very safe refuge in a well-concealed cave. So the sewage was discharged into the moat, and actually a space had been designed in this sewage tunnel so that somebody, the lucky person, was big enough to go to, only just for them to go down in there and clean it if it got blocked or anything like that.
Nice.
This one's quite cool as well, because it has a fake one right by the front door. They go, oh, we have found your priesthide. Oh, there's no one in it. Let's go. And go, that's my pretend priesthide, you idiot. So this book, Philip has got
my decoy priesthide.
Yeah. Decoy
so
hole.
I've been reliably informed that this isn't 100% accurate, this book, but it's not bad. But I wanted to read you this, because this just gives you an idea of how clever he was. So when he made this one using this tunnel, there's the priesthide here. I don't know if you can see the tunnel there, Baddesley Clinton. So it says Nicholas began by building a new garderobe turret so that the sewage now had a different discharge point. He then blocked up the old discharge opening into the moat and built a plug of bricks and stone 12 meters down the passage to produce an isolated section of tunnel forming the hide. Finally, he closed up the loopholes and converted an existing garderobe downshaft next to the chapel into a concealed entrance. This hide was long enough to accommodate a number of men. It did have the drawback that in parts the roof was so low the occupants would have to stoop, and as its floor was only just above the waterline of the moat, it always had standing water in it. The photograph shows as it is today. So yeah, so that's another thing that people were pretty sure it was that one, was because there was description of was it 4 people hiding in it, how they were ankle deep in water when they were in there. But it's that or being dragged off by priest hunters. So what are you going to do?
Yeah, but like,
you're going to stand in the shit, aren't you?
Yeah, but also gross.
But also
gross.
Yeah. Anyway, so there are many, many examples of his work, and they are ingenious, really, and that's how they stand out. So though we don't know, sort of, there are many for sure that are his. The ones that tend to be the most ingenious are the ones that obviously stand out. They were the very, very clever ones. He never made any of them twice the same. because obviously if they'd seen somebody once, they might recognize the mechanisms or the setups and things like that. So he didn't want his work to be recognized. They were always additions to existing houses. So they weren't ever houses built with priesthides sort of like in the planning and everything like that. So what else have I missed? Because of that, it was almost like he had to be like an architect as well as a joiner, because you have to know that if you knock that bit down, the whole house isn't going to come with it. So he was an extremely clever man, and ordinarily he would have to work alone because of the secrecy involved in having to do this. There was a chap called Father Richard Holtby, who was a Jesuit priest who built hides further up north, so some of them are quite similar, because Nicholas Owen might not have gone sort of that far north really, but he was taught by Owen. Obviously the Jesuit priest would come to places like Broadoaks and have these meetings where you had to have the hides built initially, and it was very dangerous. So at Baddesley Clinton and places like that, it was extremely dangerous for these people to come and do this. I had lots of songs and I haven't put everything in. The best ones are often around or in staircases because they're confusing. Things are going up in spirals. There you go. Look, that's one of the ones I wanted. So there's Phil, bless him. And that one is, that one freaks me out the most, because you can get in it on your own, but you can't get back out of it on your own. So if you're in it,
I don't like that.
You're in it.
I don't like that at all.
It's really horrible. So that one is actually built. So that's at Harvington. So Harvington Hall now is where they have 7 priesthides remaining. The whole hall isn't there. Part of it was demolished, but they think that that's got the most hides in it that we're aware of, and they have some Owen hides there. So there's that one, and then they've also got a brilliant one which is under a swinging beam in the library, and that's the one Philippa made me get in. But yeah, that one's quite famous. It's quite ingenious there. So Harvington is a great place, and it's not that far from Baddesley Clinton either, is it, Philippa? I don't think.
No, it's not. So these are all Midlands houses. I mean, there's a big Catholic concentration in the Midlands. So a lot of the houses to do with this sort of era, the priesthood, but also the gunpowder plot, you'll find a lot of them are linked to Baddesley Clinton, and the same sort of houses come up. But yeah, so there's Harvington. I thought you might like the nighttime one as well.
Is that when we went to Manor at Moonlight?
Yeah.
Another one just worth a very quick mention whilst you enjoy it is Sawston Hall. Now it's privately owned and nobody apparently can get in that one to have a look, but again it's in that same area, but it's got a toilet in it. It's not going to stop it smelling vile, but it's very forward thinking that there's a toilet. It's somewhere to sit as well. There you go. So there we go.
Yeah.
So just a couple more little things before I wrap up about this young man. He was the patron saint of illusionists, and some people also call him more informally as the patron saint of escapologists, because he helped to, as you will hear, orchestrate the escape of Father John Gerard. In October 1970, Pope Paul VI canonised a number of Catholic lay and religious men who became known as the 40 Martyrs of England and Wales, but they have now dropped the 40 bit. These guys were all executed between 1535 and 1679. So they've dropped the 40 bit because there were so many more than 40 in the end that were canonized for this same thing. And lastly, he was very good at decoy hides, apparently. So what he would do is you would have the small hide in it where you would put like the naughty items like jewelry and things like that. And then because they'd found that, they'd think, I've emptied that spot now. And they would then walk away. So that's called a decoy hide. So there you go then. So there is Mr. Nicholas Owen, a little bit about him and his work. But yeah, it's safe to Google. Well, it should be safe to Google priest hides. I go with hides, not holes.
Probably not too bad to Google,
yeah. But yeah, absolutely amazing. And I think, we have talked about this before, but just, whatever you may think about any person in any religion or whatever, what these men went through to continue to practice their religion and to allow other people to do so, to under, you know, the threat of torture and death, absolutely, on a day-to-day basis, and then be prepared to squeeze into these tiny spaces that were very cramped. A lot of the time you couldn't stand up or sit down or lay out. They were either very, very hot or very, very cold. They were insecty and musty, and they had to be absolutely pitch black, and you couldn't make a sound because they would make the house very quiet and hear. So, you know, if you coughed or sneezed or spoke or anything, you could very easily sort of give yourself away, and that would be it. And you could be in this, you didn't know how long you were going to be in these spaces. It could be hours, but it could be days, and you could die basically. And if you've been in there for a long time, you could still get caught. There may be a bucket for you to wee or whatever else in, but you know that would still be in the room with you. And depending on the situation, you may have very little to nothing to eat or drink. So there we go. It must have been horrible. I mean, I don't think horrible covers it, but just really.
Because the point of the sorry, Kat, if you said this, but the Jesuit priests were actually, they weren't here just to allow for Catholics to hear mass and take mass. They were actually active, weren't they? Active in trying to recruit people to the faith, which was why they were deemed so dangerous to the Elizabethan and then following up the Jacobean regime.
Yeah, I don't know how much they actually admitted they were proselytizing. I think there would certainly be some that said that everybody they spoke to or encountered was a true Roman Catholic from the beginning.
They're already a Catholic.
There may well have been some. There may well have been some that were like, "I know we are proselytizing," but I don't know how widely. Certainly, that's something that the Elizabethan government thought. But I'm unclear as to how open the Jesuits were with admitting that. One thing I do think is quite interesting is, frequently the houses they are staying in, the people, so the homeowners that are protecting them, there'd often be kind of a male lord who would be the one who outwardly conforms, who attends as a way of kind of subverting suspicion. They'd be at parish church, they'd be there, they may even be serving in Elizabeth's court and attending church already there. So what you have is you have these priesthide builders, and you have the priests themselves in houses where they are preaching to, being cared for, supported by the lady of the house, who is there with her children, who is raising them in the Catholic faith along with her servants. So that's the kind of, I suppose, the split of power that's quite interesting as well. That frequently it's women who are hiding these priests. They're men, obviously, in almost all cases. You know, they've potentially paid or commissioned the priesthides to be built, but they may be outwardly conforming.
Yeah. I think quite often it was the women. Margaret Clitheroe is a good example of not even a high-ranking woman who was doing exactly that on the shambles in York, and of course paid the ultimate price. But anyway, we should stick to Nicholas. Are we?
Oh, hang on, let me get my thing.
Yeah, I need to get my thing as well.
All right.
I'm going to. I don't want to give away my secret hiding place.
I dropped it on the floor.
Oh,
Christ! I know. Hang on. You're like how Philip gets.
Bear with. Watch yourself. There we are.
Everyone to see her chaos.
Background, and I just disappear.
It shows my ears up. No.
So it's rant time. It's rant time.
Yeah, it makes me look like I'm blonde, and that looks awful. Hello. What are we ranting about, birds?
Wow. Got anything? Kicking you off?
Apart from everything, what are we angry about this week?
It's actually, we have run out of things to rant about. It's which one to pick. Shall we rant about?
Or like we've ranted privately. It's which one to make.
It's been a week in the had WhatsApp chat group. It's been quite the week.
Yeah.
I am my rant is completely impotent, and I hope it makes me feel better. And it's a rant that is based upon possibly mostly hormones, and that's not normally an excuse I use. But I will tell you here and now that I have reached the stage of pregnancy where I am feeling fairly fed up of being poked and prodded.
It's being poked and prodded that got you in this situation in the
yes,
first place.
I like being poked and prodded by him. It's the other people that want to go as well. I am fairly fed up of essentially whenever I see a medical professional, they want so many fluids out of me. I'm scarcely aware of how many fluids I have left. And I've had it up to here with being stabbed with needles, made to pee in so many cups. I feel like I'm some weird athlete training for the Olympics and they think I'm doping. I have no idea. And the appointments are they don't talk to you for months. And then they are just so far up your butt. I feel like they're wearing me like sooty. And I have never felt more like a vessel and less like a person than I do right now. And on the one hand, I absolutely know and recognize that it's for my own good, but I'll be honest, I'm getting really fucked off with it. I'm getting really fucked off with it. And I'm hormonal. So I'm hormonal, I'm hot and sweaty, and I am, expanding. And so I'm livid. I am livid.
I will look after you next week, Kat. I will bring you things and water and ice cream and a footstool, and you'll be fine.
And here's the thing that's really annoying is that this baby is planned, very much wanted, already very much loved. And I feel like this. I feel fucking furious at the imposition. So I can scarcely comprehend because both of them, I'm very lucky in that both of the times I have been pregnant, it has been planned, tried for, babies. And both times by this stage, I was oscillating between white hot fury and inconsolable weeping. And there was like occasional periods of the in-between where I was quite jovial, but the rest of the time it was just this furious feelings of emotions. I can scarcely comprehend what this stage of pregnancy must be like for somebody who didn't want to be pregnant. That must just be fucking horrendous.
I didn't. Well, no, the first time was all right. The second time was a bit harder. The first time was fine. Also, I was teaching circuit classes at like 38, 39 weeks.
So my second one was easier, I think.
If one more grown adult who has my name on a piece of paper in front of them because they've got my medical file, if one person calls me mummy.
Oh, yeah.
What are you doing? I'm not your fucking mummy, babe. We're the same age. I'm not your mummy.
Yeah, that's really patronising. I've got a much more mundane rant, but I did leave you to a voice note, didn't I, the other day when I was at the services, which follows on from our preening and printing and blah, blah. Didn't we talk about that last week? Anyway, women wearing hair rollers.
Tube preening.
Oh, yeah, we started,
in the service station. Because they are doing it for attention. Because they strut at the same time. So I know what you're doing. And here I am talking about you.
It's a different form of...
There's no need to still have your
being
rollers in.
An attention whore. History is full of massive attention whores. In fact, if you think about it, how many people in history that we talk about, how many of them aren't attention whores? It's quite there's
a lot of people in history.
Owen, clearly not an attention whore. In fact, going out of his way to attract any attention whatsoever. But mostly massive attention whores.
Yeah, because that's how come we know about them.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who've lived. There's a reason why we only talk about certain ones of them.
But it just never really occurred to me how much of that before. I never really thought about it.
I will say the wearing of rollers in public
Okay, talking over each other.
The wearing of rollers in public is a bit of a time-honoured tradition, isn't it?
No, I remember it more recently.
Yeah, I've always seen, but usually there's a headscarf over them. That's the thing. Is there's an attempt to conceal.
Yeah, this is on a motorway service station. Like, where are they going? Like, how long is their journey? And they're doing it in rollers. Like,
you know what I think as well? I think the invention of those soft rollers.
Yeah,
where you can type, you can sleep in it.
Yeah,
the big
These
boys,
the big show
big
off ones. Yeah.
You know,
Wow.
Philip,
Maybe
next
I'm
time
just
we all
jealous
go
'cause-
somewhere, me and Kat will turn up in our pajamas and just
Well, yeah, and coming out in pajamas, please, people, stop doing that.
like I've threatened one time when I see Philippa to wear my chavvy white tracksuit that I bought on purpose because it's chavvy. She's like,
You can wear it, but it is going to get very dirty when you're strapped to the front of Winnebago. But I did warn you. So,
like, you know when big sort of Arctic lorries have like a sad teddy bear strapped
like
front,
like
roadkill.
Toy
What are we
Story.
doing here, lads?
That's
what are we doing here? Why have you got roadkill strapped in front of you?
Yeah. What are we doing?
Why is Paddington Bear your roadkill?
In a chavvy white tracksuit. It wasn't a cheap chavvy white tracksuit. I did go the whole hog.
It doesn't matter. They're not normally cheap, but that doesn't mean they're any class.
I know, but I bought it on
purpose. Says
great,
post-pandemic, I had a hard time wanting to put pants on and a bra. Babe, since the pandemic, I have given up. I've thrown away all my jeans. I now know I own a pair of trousers that does not have an elasticated waist. Fuck that, not doing it.
I went the opposite. No, I went the opposite way.
I'm my high heels as well. I'm done with high heels. Done with buttons on waistbands. I want a big knicker. If my knicker isn't basically up to underneath my tits, I'm not interested. And I'll tell you what else I don't want. I don't want underwire anymore in my bras. I'm done.
Oh no, that's very bad for you. You shouldn't do that.
Oh, fuck off. There's no way I'd have a bust if I didn't have underwires and a load of padding. I'm not giving up mine. But I went the opposite way.
You can get padded stuff. You can get all sorts of stuff now because after giving up nursing bras, here we are, TMI. They've got no wires. They're too uncomfortable, but you can get loads of really good stuff now that doesn't have wires in. Honestly, and like the breast cancer charity people say, don't wear wires.
Oh, I'm sick of being told what to do by people who pretend they know what they're talking about. So that's not happening. And I went the opposite way. I thought if the world's ending, I'm wearing my best shit. So I did. Anyway,
that's a fair point.
Essentially, all of my clothes are basically a smart version of a nightie and pajamas. Everything I wear on a daily basis that I could sleep in them. What I'm currently wearing, this top, I could sleep in this top. The trousers have got a wide elasticated waistband. Now, granted, I am pregnant, but I haven't bought new maternity clothes. These are the clothes I own. These are the clothes I own.
Thrifty. That's what we're like.
And I haven't bought bigger clothes either. All of my clothes are so elasticated that it can expand to fit what is now a 29-week baby. And I have not bought any new clothes. That is just the clothing I've been wearing.
Good work.
Love it.
You might need to replace it at some point. Big, fine. Stretchy, fine. Elastic gone, not quite so fine.
Yeah, valid. When I put elastic, I will buy the same thing again. It'll be a reorder.
Yeah, just buy two. If you find things you like, buy two
in every color.
Anyway, this isn't history anymore.
Right.
So, and I was tired before we started, so that's
right. Let's hear about a sad but impressive story, Philippa.
Right. So we've got Nicholas Owen. He is working as a servant basically, but obviously he's for what's his name, Father Garnet, this Jesuit priest who but he's directing him, I presume, and he's going around the country. And the reason we don't know, like Catherine's said, where or for definite where Owen's priest holes are is because the only people who would know where they were the owners of the houses and himself. And Owen doesn't write anything down, and he never, ever gives away the locations of any of his work. So it is impossible to say for definite. However, like Catherine also said, there are indications that they're his work. I mean, it becomes known that there is a master carpenter, master craftsman who is responsible for creating hides in which to hide people. So there's quite a bit, but like Catherine said as well, he was so who was, yeah, it was John Gerard, who was another priest who was captured and put in the Tower of London, and Nicholas Owen was part of the rescue squad that bust him out of that joint in 1597. He's clearly got balls of steel, this man. All of them have, but he is in there. You know, he's there at the escape, successful escape attempt of John Gerard, and he's building these priesthides. He is actually he's arrested in 1594, and he's taken to the Poultry on Cheapside, which is a prison, and he is hung in shackles. He's it's sort of known that he's of the Catholic fraternity, but his identity at that point is not known, and he doesn't break, and the fine for him, or a bribe basically, is paid off by some wealthy Catholic, don't know who, but probably somebody who recognizes, knows who he is, knows his importance, knows that he needs to be out and doing his work. But his as we move from Elizabeth's reign into the reign of James I, this Catholic, the anti-Catholic state is becoming even stronger, I suppose, under James. They're really clamping down on this, and I think you get a majority of people who just think, right, I'm just going to go with the wind, whichever way this goes, we're going. But you also then have your hardcore, I don't really want to call them extremists, but basically the people who end up being involved in the gunpowder plot, which is fairly soon into James's reign, which of course then just seeks to exacerbate the lot for any known Catholics, and the state is energized to go after them. But anyway, he is he's captured Nicholas Owen in 1606. There is a house called Hinlip Hall in Worcestershire. So again, sort of in the same circuit as Coton Court, Harvington Hall, Baddesley Clinton. These are all in the Midlands. And Hinlip Hall had been the house of a man called Thomas Habington. He had actually been arrested in 1586 for his part in the conspiracy to overthrow Elizabeth and put Mary Queen of Scots on the throne. Now, although I'm not quite clear how, but although his own brother was executed for his part, Thomas was released and allowed to go back to Hinlip, and Hinlip basically becomes a Catholic hub for priests. It's a safe place. Hinlip has at least 11 priesthides, and the priests report they feel safe there. Well, that possibly wasn't a great idea, because when the gunpowder plotters are the ones that they catch are arrested and taken to London, one of them, by the name of Humphrey Littleton, tries to gain clemency by basically giving up the information that there are priests hiding at Hinlip Hall, and that these priests include the Jesuit superior, Father Garnet, who of course Owen is working for. If Garnet is there, Owen is going to be there. this is, I'm going to show you, this is Hindlip Hall. Hindlip Hall, unfortunately, doesn't exist anymore. It burnt down in the 18th or 19th century. This is what it would look like, which is kind of Harvington Hall-esque, actually, I think, and the sort of like lots of different turrets, and it's like a big version of that. This on the left is what it looks like today. This is the new building, and it's well, it's not new, clearly, but it's the police headquarters for Worcestershire Police. So
is that like a radio mast in the background?
Yes, a massive radio mast.
Yes,
it looks like Ali Pally. It looks like this is the BBC broadcasting live from Alexander Palace. And now,
and this is the sort of memorial to the service dogs at the front here. This is an Alsatian made of metal or confiscated knives. I don't know.
Metal or confiscated knives.
There's an amnesty. made a statue.
Yes, Fido. Medium bayonet.
Anyway, so yes, so that's Hindlip Hall, and they go to Hindlip Hall and they do so yeah, sorry, and there's like 100 men apparently go to Hindlip Hall. Again, like Catherine says, just as the police is involved, there's a warrant to search. They go really because there's some accounts say they went on Sunday. I can't remember the date, but anyway, it goes into it's basically early hours of the morning on the Monday. Where have I put the date? I can't find it. We're talking January 1606 anyway. The house is raided. The way this would happen, there's an outer gatehouse. They would be banging on the door. The servants go and try and engage them in conversation to give the people of the house who shouldn't be there time to get into the priesthides. And they should do things like also clear away any evidence that they were there. If it's the nighttime, one of the reasons the priest hunters would come at night, obviously there's the surprise factor, but one of the things they would do is check for warm beds. So one of the things that they're supposed to do is flip the mattress before they would get into the hide. In this case, there wasn't enough time because the authorities, the men who are searching, they know that there's people in the house. One, they've got this snitch down in London who's told them there's people in the house. Two, they find they feel the beds and they're warm. There's a number of beds that are warm. They see things like books and clothing strewn that make it look like people had to move in a hurry. So they know there's people here. So they are settling down for the long haul. These guys have got all the time in the world, and they're here for one job and one job only. Interesting what you said, Kat, about the women of the house tend to be the ones who are kind of fronting this. Thomas Habington is actually away at he does actually come back a few days in, but he's actually not there. So it's his wife who has served the warrant. So I found the date, 20th of January 1606. I knew I'd written it down. Is when it starts, and they search every day. They find some of the smaller hides, so the ones that Catherine mentioned, these ones that are just for like the vestments or the massing stuff. But so they start in the very early hours of the Monday morning. On the Thursday morning, Nicholas Owen and a man called Ralph Ashley come out of their hide, and they try and blend in as servants. Apparently, I don't know.
Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious.
Yeah. They sort of come out of the hide when they think that sort of someone's walked past and just sort of try and blend in. But of course, the people searching have been there already for. They're on their fourth day, so they're well aware of who's in the house and who's not.
And they must have smelt really bad by that point as well.
Quite. I imagine they looked a little dishevelled. They had they'd been in this hide, these two together. I'm sorry, I'm not sure who this Ralph guy is because I didn't look that up. But anyway, so the two men in the hide, they had between them one apple, no water, nothing for comfort. So they would have been Thursday. It's January. They were probably cold, depending on where the hide is, actually. But and they had one apple between them. And I don't know if you've ever tried eating an apple if you're hungry, but it doesn't cut it.
Doesn't quite cut. Yeah.
So yeah.
Not half an apple.
So yeah, certainly not between two of you.
Don't care what anyone says. Fruit's never going to be as good as a Mars bar, is it? Let's be honest.
I mean, I think probably though you aren't going to have a Mars bar.
Probably not back then. No,
in the late 16th century.
As a general observation, that
they should have worked out.
And it is nice, but it's also a bit shit when you really need a proper.
If only they'd worked out how to make flapjacks. They could have put a little tin in there.
They could have papered the wall with a flappy jack.
They could just lick the walls for 2 weeks. It'd have been absolutely fine. Yeah, so
like an acid trip. Licking the walls. This is where Nicholas Owen fell down. Nicholas Owen, selfish, didn't make gingerbread priesthides. That's what he should have done. He should have Hansel and Gretel'd that shit.
Yeah,
Even thinking about there's not even a single Smartie stuck to the wall. Dickhead.
But what he tries to do
stuff through, do they?
Pardon?
People just don't think the stuff's through. If we'd have been there.
Well, we'd have been more organised. No, but
Priesthide, but I'm scared of them.
Yeah, you'd have given in. You'd have given in within 10 minutes. There's no way you'd have sat in there. I don't think I would either.
No.
But yeah, so they've come out. I mean, also these hides, like Catherine said, are really cramped. I mean, they must have been in pain. So they're in pain. They're hungry. They're thirsty. They're cold, and they've managed into 4 days. I mean, I think that's pretty impressive. And they try and persuade their capturers that they are indeed the priests that they're looking for, because remember these priest hunters have got no idea how many people are in the house. They've got no idea how many hides there are. There is a point at which they will think they've found the people they're looking for. So they're trying to persuade them that they are the priests. Anyway, that doesn't last very long. Interestingly, despite the fact that these men made it out of this priesthide, the authorities never find the hide where Owen had been hiding. They never find it. They do, however, find the hide where Father Garnet is hiding, but that takes them to the 8th day before they found it. And the reason that they were able to survive that long is because of so let's put it down to Owen. Let's just assume all these clever hides are Owen's. He had fitted a tiny sort of straw or tube from the master bedroom where, I think it was the master bedroom, where they could sort of put water or, a thin broth down to keep the men alive. Now, for all of Owen's effort, Nicholas Owen's efforts for diverting and just saying, no, we're the priests, Garnet actually later blamed Owen's failed tactics for giving the searchers more impetus and energy. So
it's very pleasing some people, isn't it?
I know, just.
And they've been besties for like 18 years or something by that point. You can't trust any fucker these days, can you?
I know, right? So he's first taken to Marshalsea Prison in comparatively light custody. I mean, alarm bells, right? And he works this out. The reason they've put him under light custody and they're allowing him visitors is because they want to see who his visitors are. So he cuts himself off, he doesn't want to put anyone else in danger, so he just cuts himself off. So by the time, like I said, of his capture, he's known to authorities as the #1 chief builder priesthides in England. They get him a plaque, maybe a little badge.
A sash.
They are, a sash. They're very excited. Cecil probably wheezes his pants when he finds out they've got Nicholas Owen in custody because this is the man with the information about where these priesthides are. Like I say, it's only him and the people he's provided these for, and I don't think they're going to put them in the accounts. So he's the only one. Even if they know he's worked at the house, they're not going to know where the hides are. So he is moved to the tower by this point as well. Garnet is in the tower. Father Garnet is kept in some comfort. Owen, unfortunately, not so much. He is marked for torture, and there's this whole sort of legal argument. What's legal is not necessarily what's right. And in this case, anyway, it's a bit of a moot point. Can we rack them or not? Oh, let's see it. So basically, because of the gunpowder plot, there's been this warrant sent to the lieutenant of the tower, which basically says, right, anyone who is committed to the tower. This was in the end of February 1606. This was given to the lieutenant of Tower of London, that from the Privy Council, that anyone who is inferior, so low-born prisoner, who there is detained in connection with the powder plot, as the powder treason, excuse me, which is what the gunpowder plot was known as at the time, could be racked. So they've got this green light for the ultimate. Now, racking wasn't as common a torture as is assumed. They mainly got enough out of people by shackling them in manacles. So someone would be suspended from their wrists in manacles, maybe a weight on their feet. So, I mean, they're still being stretched. It's a similar concept. And he had that similar experience when he'd been in the poultry in Cheapside. At the time, they're just trying to see if they can get something out of him, and they don't know who they've got. So they, like I said before, they once they were bribed, they let him go. But he undergoes the same torture. Now, it gets a bit gross here, and not just from the torture point of view. So buckle up, okay? Nicholas Owen, he has a hernia. So he has a bulging, his intestines basically are bulging. I wasn't clear whether this was something an injury he'd already sustained, or whether this begins, maybe it had begun with the shackling at the poultry, the 10 years before, whatever it is. And again, the legalities as to whether you should rack somebody who's got a hernia. But just being held in the manacles makes it gape. This is gross. So, warning. When people are being stretched.
This is a no eating portion. No eating.
No eating.
The show. No eating.
Definitely not. When they're being stretched, their stomach will swell. I mean, you're basically pulling all the sinews. It's gross. It's incredibly painful. Of course, people pass out. That's obviously another thing from it.
You really?
Pardon, say again.
You'd hope you'd pass out, quite frankly.
Yeah. I think it was Garnet went under this. No, it might have been Gerard. One of the other priests undergoes this. Was it Gerard? He manages to write about it later, doesn't he?
And they would wait till you regain consciousness and do it again. So
yes,
that's it. They don't stop when you pass.
No, they would revive him and put him back up. So, it sounds it's simple and effective.
Don't get that in Brighton.
Well, you might, but
you might.
So
the right price, you can.
Yeah. So, now they want him tortured. They want the information. They don't want him dead. The hernia puts him at risk of dying. Therefore, them losing their prisoner, which apparently was rather embarrassing. It was quite embarrassing if you lost a prisoner through torture. You got a little bit blushy when you had to explain how that happened. But the Rat Master General decides that that's not his real title, by the way. I've just
it should be though. It should be.
Wants to rack him. He's not giving up any information. If he ever does, he's very careful to only state what they already know. You know, oh, I was the servant of Father God. You know, he gleans, he understands what they already know, and he only gives up what they already know. So this is frustrating them. So they want to put him on the rack, but he's got this bulging hernia. So Rat General decides that he's going to sort this out by putting an iron kind of almost iron cummerbund around him to hold the hernia in while he racks him. I don't know if this man went to school.
Maybe
it's unsurprisingly
medical school.
No, it's not actually. Again, though, I'm not actually 100% sure whether he is racked or whether he's continued to be strung up in the manacles and they do this.
Oh, God.
Either way, it's about to get worse. So buckle up 10 times.
More buckling.
Or buckle. His abdomen bursts.
Oh, dear God in heaven.
I can show you a picture if you like. Catherine's like, yeah, right. So this is
my child's bone sticking out his arm. So at that point, I'm a bit like,
yeah.
Okay. Here's Philip's going to put this on the screen. I'm going to tell you to look away, and then when it's off screen, I'm going to tell you can look back if you don't want to see this. Okay.
Yeah.
Philip's going to put this. As a woman who is planning to go a cesarean section, I'm nervous about seeing this.
You might not. Maybe Catherine should do this bit.
Philip's going to put it on the screen. It's going to happen now. Look away.
Now, it's a depiction. This isn't because one, we know he's a short man, and this is rather a long man. You can see in his stomach area above the kind of loincloth that they've depicted him in that his intestines have come out of his body. So I'm going to take it off now.
Squishy than I was expecting.
Okay, now the screen is clear. Now the screen is clear.
Pretty gross. It's pretty gross. CMCG. I'm going to have to, or CMCG. I'm going to have to put some kitten pictures on afterwards. I should have lined them up. Unsurprisingly,
fluffy to show. I can show you my beaver.
There you go. You can see Catherine. Well, hold your beaver, Catherine, because I'm nearly finished.
Get a grip on that beaver. That beaver's out of control.
Now, unsurprisingly, this leads to his death. He's taken back to his cell, and he's obviously in incredible pain, and he passes away overnight between the 1st and the 2nd of March, 1606. Because they're so embarrassed about this.
Oh no, I feel for them, don't you? I do.
His jailers try and pass it off as suicide. Hilarious. I mean, well done. Who thought of that? But because their story goes that a kindly jailer had given Nicholas a knife, just a blunt one, to eat his food with. And what Nicholas had decided to do is cut himself open. Now, I've had a hernia, a very, very little one. I can tell you, you don't move very easily.
I've got one now.
Oh, well, there you go. You know, it hurts. This man has his guts hanging out. He's not capable of anything. I doubt he's eating his dinner for a start. And he's certainly not taking a knife and giving a blunt knife and managing to cut himself with it. Clearly, this is an extra injury. That any lacerations have come from this metal girdle that they've tried to put around him while they're torturing him to hold this hernia in. So it's all rather embarrassing and ludicrous. And a very sad end for a very, very brave man who never gave up any details which led to the deaths of or arrests of anyone else. Never gives up the information about the hides. It's why we don't necessarily know exactly where his work is.
Which is frustrating. It's a shame that I didn't just go, well, I just might as well tell you everything.
Well, I've left a list in Harvington Hall in a Priesthide. If you find it, you get the lot.
That special Priesthide.
Yeah, and I think it's only right that he is eventually, although it did take 400 years, is that right? To get him sanctized, if that's even the right word. Yeah, which Catherine's already mentioned. So he has got he is one of the 40 martyrs, and he was canonized in October 1970, so it did take quite a while. And although they have the 40 martyrs has a feast day, he does have his own individual feast day on the 22nd of March. So if you want to toast to the king of hide and seek, then 22nd of March is the man to do it, is the day to do it.
Maybe that's where the princes in the tower are.
They're in a Priesthide.
Too early. Damn it. Oh, otherwise that would have been no, they could still have been around. Elon Musk moving him about in his time machine.
Yeah. They were having an easy life on the continent, though. They were all right.
Well, that was
quite the tale.
A depraved end, wasn't it?
But what an amazing man.
Egads.
He also spent a lot of his life as a servant, remember? So he's also like, you're not allowed to be a brother. You can be a lay brother, but you can't be a priest because you're deformed. But we will take
all that to these people who wouldn't even let him because of...
Yeah. And Garnet is like you say, like I was saying before, actually blames him for his own capture. I think actually it sounds like they got a little bit, I mean, I'm totally reading between the lines and the lines probably aren't full, but it seems like they got a little bit complacent at Hindlip. It sounds like they were very comfy. The idea they had that many priesthides, but they were not, I think the one that they weren't stocked. So I think the one that Father Gerard went into, I keep getting Gerard and Garnet mixed up. The one that Garnet went into, had a bucket, like you mentioned, had a way of getting water in, but the others don't seem to be. I mean, I'm guessing there, but there was even a hierarchy potentially in the priesthides where people could go when the men came a knocking.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, not only did they kind of exclude him from being a brother, despite all the work he does, they also, he doesn't get the same kind of provisions of protection or help to escape. He's left to dangle.
He is. I mean, he's not in 15. When did I say he was first arrested? He is 1594. He is someone pays the bribe and he gets out, but then he's not well known. By 1606, they're aware that there is a master carpenter building these priesthides everywhere, and they're very keen to get hold of him. And so Cecil is very excited when he finds out that they actually have captured him. I mean, he's a massive bonus if they were after the priests and they actually get him. So and then he gives them nothing.
The logical thing to have done once he is known and once his fame spreads, the logical choice would have been actually for the Pope to call him up to Rome, so he could go over there and train other Jesuits in the business of priesthide building. He becomes such a high value target. It's really weird, I think, and especially he's so well known, his work is so well known, that he's not recalled. Because when it comes to John Gerard, following his escape, he is preaching around the country. And then, of course, word of his escape spreads and the Pope recalls him to Rome.
He eventually does, doesn't he? But doesn't he, for a long time, he's requesting... Yeah, he's saying it's too hot here. I need to come back. We need to retreat a little bit. And the Pope says no. So the Pope doesn't mind playing,
Yeah.
loose with the lives of his soldiers, if you like, that are.
He does eventually recall Gerard. He does eventually recall Gerard. The interesting thing is that he doesn't recall Owen or call Owen. Rather,
well, Gerard obviously manages. I can't remember how he evades capture, but yeah, I think it's decided. Right, okay, yeah, come and write it down. And of course, that's why we've got an account, because he writes his autobiography at the insistence of the Vatican.
Yeah.
Well,
it's going to be interesting assessing him. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't hear what Catherine said.
I said I snort with contempt.
Yes. Well, it's not nice, but we're talking about him now, and I think that's a good thing. He's remembered, at least, because he wouldn't have had a clue, even if he was known at the time, I suppose, let alone be recognised by his church. Eventually, took them way too long. But then there's a whole process that has to go through. You can't just make anyone a saint, even though they do.
Why not?
Well, I mean, Thomas More wasn't made a saint. Thomas More wasn't made a saint until like the 20th century. Well, the thing is, the making of English Catholic mass into Catholic saints is a later thing. I mean, Thomas More is being called a martyr within months of his death, but he's not made a saint until the 20th century.
I mean, they did, to be fair, had rules around who could be made a saint, and it did for centuries rely on the miracles occurring.
Yes,
and 3 or 5 or something, and then and
usually the body being inviolate as well,
which couldn't have been the case, obviously, with someone like Nicholas, or More, actually.
Yeah. Right. Well, there we go. I'm going to look forward to assessing him in line with others.
What's happening next week?
Oh, next week we're switching nights.
We are, Soz. That's my fault.
It's okay. I've made other plans now too, so it's fine. I took the opportunity. So we are.
You are rescuing somebody.
I am rescuing somebody. I'm. Yeah, sorry, not me. I'm not going to tell you what I'm doing because it's a secret. But I am going. We are going to be back next Thursday. Excuse me. So not Wednesday, but Thursday. And I've forgotten who we're talking about.
John Peel.
We are talking about
Robert Peel.
Robert Peel.
Yes.
Peel was the presenter. I nearly put a picture of Nicholas Owen, the BBC presenter, on, but I thought that's just going to be lost on so many people.
That's who comes up, isn't it? So
that's who comes up. But yes, Robert Peel, PM. That's who we're talking about next week. So next Thursday, not Wednesday.
There we go.
Good time.
Yes. Not sure about this one, but anyway, yes.
Well, we shall see. And then after that, it's going to be a roundup week.
Peelers now.
In the meantime,
yes.
You can, if you like what you can support us with Winnebagos at www.buymeacoffee.com/hadpodcast. If you buy us Winnebagos, that helps support us. You can also there join our close friends. That's on Instagram. What that involves is essentially you sign up for that, and then Catherine finds some depraved.
Oh, I'm just organising me memes at the moment, and then I'll be with you people.
Yes, it'll be depraved historical /beaver memes, and she puts them on our close friends. If you want to see what our text chat looks like, that's what it looks like. So join the close friends. You can also check out our merch. We have a variety of provisions on offer for you, from earpod cases to sliders to t-shirt to mugs, with a variety of had related goodies on there. Whether you want to check out Catherine's Rough Beaver, whether you want to check out our had logo, our Timmy's a Problem merch, or our no feet for free on the internet sliders. You can do all of those things. Please do make sure that you have subscribed to this channel, that you have hit the bell icon. Allegedly, YouTube claims that does let them tell you when we are next going live. I don't think it always happens. It's supposed to. Also, please like the video. Please share it with your mates. I know that if you're here, you've got a collection of deviant friends. So if they aren't already listening, bring them in. Bring them into this cradle of filth. And it'll have a lovely time. Anything else?
Oh yeah, so you do have to now, if you've been watching and you can't comment on the live stream, it's because we had some absolute fucking bell ending a couple of weeks ago, making life difficult. So now you have to be subscribed in order to do the live commenting. So please come to extra reasons to come and subscribe. Also because that's nice for us. That would be lovely. Thanks. Please do that. Lovely.
How long have they got to be subscribed to, for Kat?
2 hours.
I'm not going to say because then people will do it beforehand and they'll make lots of accounts. It's a period of time.
I think I've just given away. So just be sissily.
Because it can be days, weeks, or months.
Well, we have to do it for each one, so you won't know. It's a gamble.
Yes. It is. Yes.
Because the thing is, the other option is if this means of prevention stops working, the only other option is that we set up members only chats. So if you are going to insult us, you'd
have to pay to do it.
But we aren't keen to do that. So this is essentially the stopgap before we have to go down that route.
But obviously, we don't want to do that.
And then the final position, of course, is that we would potentially have to stop comments, which we don't want to do either. So those are in the levels of escalation. We are where we are.
Yeah,
we are where we are. And it's not what any of us particularly would have chosen to do. There's a reason we didn't do it beforehand. It's not in any way a ploy to make you subscribe. This is the best solution we came up with to stop an individual from derailing what was otherwise a lovely conversation.
Yeah, it was one, and we've been maybe lucky. I don't know, but at least haven't had too much trouble. So we'd like to keep it that way. Anyway, no one here is a problem, so it's fine. But yeah, that might be why if you've watched and if you've been watching and you can't comment, that will be why. So
no one in this chat is a problem for us. I hope every single one of you is a problem for other people, particularly Belen. In fact, that is my advice for this week. Be a problem, guys.
Be a problem.
Not even advice. I think it might be, let's make it
someone's problem.
Let's make it an order.
Yeah. Whatever you do today, make sure you're someone's problem.
Choose a Belen though, and you will find one. You won't have to look too far.
No. And just be their problem.
Just be their problem.
Enjoy that.
There's some merch right there. Whatever you do today, be someone's problem.
Be someone's problem.
Make a note of that. Take a note. Whatever you do today, be someone's. I do solemnly swear that today I will be someone's problem. Yeah, I'm always going to be someone's problem.
My mere existence makes me somebody's problem. So
yeah, well, same. That's the plan. That's we. This is one of those things where it is do as we do and do as we tell you. We always seek to be someone's problem.
I'm people's problem, and I didn't even know they really existed. So I mean, I'm at high level.
Next level. You're like third Dan level. You're someone's problem. You're people's problem with you don't even know who they are. You're that much problem. I love it.
For some people though, Philippa, you're so much of a problem. They then try and become you.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Shall we wrap things up? Right, pals. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for your time and attention. Apart from being someone's problem, for the rest of this week, whatever you're doing, we hope you are good. If you can't, and sometimes that can be being a good problem. If you can't be good, be careful. And if you can't be careful, don't get caught. I'm going to count us out in 3, 2, 1. Bye.